Rune Slayer has been one of the most popular and upcoming games lately. I myself have been playing it a lot as well, but it makes me wonder, is this game worth playing for a while at this point? So, after I'd say about 20 hours of gameplay of myself playing it, which is quite a bit of time, I want to go over the good, the bad, and what potential I think the game has. Let's start with the good. And for that, I love the inspiration this game takes from other MMOs or RPGs like World of Warcraft. You have the character screen, you have how skills are allocated. I mean, World of Warcraft has almost a one-to-one character screen, and I like that kind of stuff when it comes to gear and seeing how much I can min-max my gear, getting all the rare items and all that. I love that. That's one of my favorite things about games like this. I love the social aspect of this game, because a lot of bosses, whether they're world bosses or things for quests, a lot of the times you do need friends to do them, which is a double-edged sword. But I love that it encourages people to go find random players and be like, hey, you want to party up and go beat this boss? You might make new friends this way. You might be able to join a guild this way. The social aspect, I think, is really good, and it encourages player growth as well as community growth. Another big thing that I like about this game is how unafraid it is to just make fun shit. I'm currently playing Warlock. I'm level 40. I love the ability to summon these demons that feel pretty strong for the most part, and I'm able to tag team enemies with them. It's a blast. I've heard other things like Beast Tamer as well, really good. You can get a giant spider, a giant crab. I mean, you have Barbarian that can just shred through enemies. I love that the game is not afraid to do this stuff and make truly wacky stuff because it lets players get diverse with what they can do. I also like world bosses because they do encourage you to get a ton of people together, like 6, 7 people, to tackle things like the Elder Treant, the, Mother Spider. And what's even better is you can't really just bring 8 of the same class, really, for the most part. You want to be a little bit diverse depending on what people's playing, what they can do, bring a healer to make things easier. I like that you're almost having guilds have different roles in them, You have a DPS, you have a healer, you have supports, you have tanks. And it just makes it feel like the game is incentivizing group play even more, going back to that social aspect that I really like and I really enjoy. Alright, let's also talk about the bad. And I gotta say, my biggest issue with the game, especially for the early levels, is the combat. It feels like mobs don't let up at all. And 2 prime examples that I have of this are the bear, not the dire bear, the normal one, and the Amphalian bird. These things don't feel like they let up enough for players to get in a proper counterattack, and when your combat is dictated by posture breaking, by dealing enough damage to then do more damage, if you can't even get there in the first place, how are players supposed to do it? And this is even further exemplified by casters. Casters have cast times to use their moves, and when they're interrupted half the time by grabs, ragdoll spam, because a lot of these mobs have ragdoll spam, it makes casters feel like they're either incredibly useful or almost useless, because if you can't even get a spell off without being ragdolled or hit repeatedly, what are we doing? And with the Amphalian bird especially, these things don't let up at all. They keep wind blast after wind blast into a grab. I mean, for players, when are you supposed to counterattack? So, while that's very frustrating, I think there can be something to be done about making combat feel a little bit more consistent and actually giving players more time to actually counterattack after maybe a set of moves or a move. A real easy way to fix this is just adding some end lag to moves in between to make these mobs feel less oppressive and more enjoyable to fight. The next big thing with combat as well is the amount of ragdoll spam. There's no way to really cancel ragdoll in this game, especially from fall damage, and when a decent amount of things just do ragdolls, it feels very frustrating and less skill-based to fight, especially when some of these hitboxes don't feel like they're properly shown to the player. I mean, like the Queen Spider's leap attack that you have to jump, like just physically jump to avoid. If you don't time it right, you can just be ragdoll locked if the Queen Spider decides to do it multiple times. Same thing can go for certain mobs like the Basilisk, where they can do a dual claw attack, and if you get hit once, the second claw automatically hits. And I think that's a bigger issue with how the combat in this game is mostly true stun based. So once you're hit or locked into a combo, you kind of just have to take it. So that can be a very frustrating aspect of combat. Another issue that I do have with the game is the lack of reliable ways to grind for your good gear. So as an example, some of the endgame gear for Mage is the Arachnid set. So you have the Arachnid hat, robes, pants, and staff. And in this game, you also can get runes, 1 through 6 slots I believe, that you can then start engraving into your gear, but the only way you can get these rune slots is upon crafting it. You'll get randomized from 0 to 6 slots. This is not a very fun way to grind for your gear, and trying to get god rolled gear is extremely grindy, almost to the point of artificial difficulty, because you have to go for the 5% drop chance from the boss to then get some of the materials to craft the thing that you need, and then hope that you get enough rune slots. An easy way to fix this is have something that you can either craft or earn that increases the amount of rune slots you can get on an item. Easiest fix ever. Another big issue with the game that I have is that some classes feel very great to play while others feel absolutely abysmal to play. And the biggest example I can think of is Warlock versus Sorcerer. So for Warlock, you get 2 summons, a new move, a couple new passives, and the kit overall synergizes pretty well. These summons are brutal. I mean, they can take down mobs pretty quickly. And they're not too hard to get, they can just be very tedious to get. Sorcerer, on the other hand, currently has mechanics and moves that rely entirely on RNG, and even the moves that you do get to use just aren't that good to use at all. I mean, normal moves that you can get from the scroll gacha outclass them by a mile. This kind of class disparity is really bad because it makes the classes look not very well thought out and overall very clunky and just not fun to play at all, which I think is a big issue when you're trying to encourage class diversity. And some starting things don't even have a unique things to pick from. Like as an example, the healer base class that you can start with, it only has one. It only has cleric. There's no other options. That is all you get right now, which isn't the best look. Overall, I think the game has a lot of potential. There's just polishing of certain mechanics like the combat and how mobs work, and just fixing up some of the classes that need more love, such as Striker or Sorcerer. And I think the game's on a great pace to become a really enjoyable MMORPG type experience for people to enjoy playing. So, thank you guys for listening, and if the devs watch this, I would love to sit down and talk about it with you guys. I've been playing and noticing a lot of things that I think definitely need to be addressed, but thank you guys for watching.